Meeting to order. Megan, if you don't mind calling the roll for us.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Brewer,
Here.
Commissioner Glover,
Here.
Commissioner Neil Anderson,
Here.
Commissioner Byrd,
Here.
Commissioner William Anderson,
Here.
Commissioner Bush, Commissioner Leggett,
Here.
Commissioner Pointer,
Here.
Commissioner Reeves.
Here. Thank you, Megan. Everyone should have received a copy of the minutes and I had a chance to review those. If there's any additions or corrections to those. If not, can we get a motion to adopt the minutes?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Opposed? Carries. Time of year, we have to make the elections of the offices for for next year, for 2024 term. Commissioner Anderson was kind enough to help us with this process. You mind giving the report?
Commissioner Bush was on the nominating committee with me and we have met. We'd like to place a nomination for chairman, Mr. Eddie Glover. He can get here on time. Tough trip from Conway.
It took us forever to get here.
And vice chairman, Jamie Burr.
All right. If everybody agrees with that, can we get a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Make a motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations.
Well, I'm off to a great start.
Eddie, I'll tell you the good news is you don't have very big shoes still.
You're in no risk of worst job.
That ain't true. That ain't true. I got a big shoe. Absolutely not. So, all right. Next item is the adoption of the 2024 meeting schedule. There's a copy in the packet, in your commissioner packet. Everybody wants to look over those, and we will need a motion to approve these if everyone agrees. Yeah, I'm sorry.
And what you'll see in here, you'll see that we added, and we typically meet, every other month, the third Wednesday. But AACD is planning to have their annual meeting in February. So last year was in September, and they're trying to rotate that now to put it in the winter. And so we're trying to adjust our dates to fit with their dates for their annual meeting. They typically host a committee meeting there. So that's why you see that February 28th. We would have typically met March 20th, and what we are recommending is that we substitute February 28th for our March 20th meeting.
I move to accept.
All in favor? Opposed? Sorry, Chris, I'm trying to bypass you there. All right. Moving along to the application for financial assistance, Brian, I believe, is going to handle that today.
We did. There is one other item that I did not put on here.
Not on my sheet.
So I-
See, Eddie, I told you. You have no problem. All right, on the other agenda, that's my bad. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Jay Lister with Water Planning. Act 605 was amended with Rule 545 and Acts 545 and 691. With those amendments, then we need to go ahead and look at changing the provider rules. If you look on page, I think it's 19 or 20, it shows the 5 different ones that are in there. It eliminated the active rate study to be completed before a major development project. It clarified the use of funds in the refurbishment and replacement account. It added flexibility in time and providing the rate study. It did call for 1 or 2 years and now says you can enact it if the rate study requires. So it doesn't hold you to the 1 or 2 years. It also repealed the requirement to be trained by 2022 and required it for December 31st of 2023. That's upcoming. And then last but not least, it abolished the Water Provider Training Advisory Council that set up the training because the training is already now set up. So the next pages goes through what we just talked about. It is the draft rules. And so what we will do next with this approval, if this body the draft, what we'll do is we'll go out for a 30-day comment period. We'll advertise for that. We'll see if anybody has any changes to that. If it comes back that there are no changes or very little changes, then what we'll ask for is a final rule to be approved at the next meeting.
And I'll just add, I mean, everything we're doing is a direct result of what changed legislatively. So our rules have to reflect what changed during the legislative session. That's really what we're accomplishing here.
Yeah, but the rules have to fit the carrying out of the laws and
Yes.
things passed. I guess what prompts the change would be my question.
Typically, it's when the legislature's in session, if there was something there that they wanted to fix, so let's just say somebody complained about a particular function of it, or they wanted to modify a part of it, then, they basically, put forth the bill and modify it. And so that's essentially what happened. That, the Act, 545 and 691, I mean, those were legislative bills that passed.
I could get that. But typically there's something that spurs them on. They don't just dream up a bill unless someone's complaining or.
I think this gives them a little more time. I mean, that's part of it.
That was the biggest. Act 605, when it first came into being, because it was so new, they really wanted to look at everything that everybody wanted. The biggest one was the training. People felt like they needed more time with the training. The other was, they felt like in a refurbishment account, it dictated exactly what it was for and didn't allow the boards to kind of think what they wanted to use it for, so it allowed for that as well. Those were the two biggest. But these changes match the laws that were passed.
We don't, of course, the legislature requires us to do this, but from a
Sure.
rate study perspective,
Sure.
that's that's a big thing to me so could you, Chris, you mind kind of talking about?
It's
that?
not really, so if you recall what Act 60 or 605 did was required all retail water providers to do a rate study. And that's a big deal because what happens a lot of times is communities are reluctant to raise their rates. It's very
We've seen that.
Yeah. And so, that part is still there. So the intent of the original legislation is still there, which is, do a rate study and make sure that your board has training. Those two components are still there. What you really do is move in some of the deadlines on it. And you're also giving them a little bit of time, for example, to implement the rate study, because for some communities, I mean, it could be a substantial increase. And so instead of having to do it all at one time, they can phase it. But some of these communities may not raise their rates in decades.
The thing that prompts his comments, and I know as an agency, we carry out the laws that are passed. I get that. And that all agencies are charged with carrying out the instructions from the governor's office and the legislative office. I get that. Since the restructuring, what I have seen out in the field is a much longer chain from things that need to be done till we get to a final authority. Which is, I don't know what savings may be, and I hope there's a bunch. But I know from the user side, there is a reduction of the conservation offices, which I'm chairman of Polk County Conservation District. I know the support level that we still have from Ryan, his folks, is there. But as far as getting an authoritative decision that, particularly if it involves any money, has to go through some other levels, and it's much slower. For instance, we have a lease with the state that expired July 31. And they first asked for a 3-month extension, which we did. We still have received no money or no lease. That's not a big deal because it's not a great big lease. But now it goes through the leasing department of the state instead of office, and just calling Chris and working things out and getting it done. This is what I'm talking about. This chain gets longer and longer and the service gets weaker and weaker. So just as voters, as people of influence with your legislature, these things, I think we need to be aware. Change is not all bad, but it's not necessarily all good either. Just a comment from an old man.
Yeah, ever since that consolidation you were talking about, Roy, you know, the commission, I guess, has lost all its like its attorneys and people that handle stuff like that. At all, I guess it all went over to the department, I'm guessing.
There's a implementation of a shared services model. So, you know, you had a lot of state agencies that moved and merged with other state agencies. Because, and if you think about it from an economic standpoint, like I came from a small agency when I first started. Well, I mean, if you have your own fiscal and your own HR and your own legal, and then every agency has their own fiscal, HR and legal, it's probably not the most efficient. And so when you combine, you know, then you're sharing those services, but it's not always perfect when you do that. I mean, there's, you know, pluses and minuses anytime you do that. But it definitely cut costs.
Well, if you're looking at saving money, of course, that's the thing to do, but if you're looking at providing service, that ain't so good.
Another illustration, poultry registration, which has been eliminated. And I'm not sure it served any great purpose, other than it was a great contact. It was the best outreach we had to reaching our people, our farmers, our growers in the county. So they had to come into the office to just sign a little old registration. But it gave us an opportunity to meet them, talk to them about the services we had. While it may have been a nuisance with the farmers, and I think we charged $10 or something like that for it, was nothing, but it was a great outreach. So the end result is the farmers didn't have to do it, but they also are not aware of different services and things that are available through the conservation office. So getting the service out to where it matters, the boots on the ground, was reduced. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Sometimes they have some unintended consequences.
Any questions for Jay? Anything else? Any other comments?
I move we accept these rules.
We get a second. All in favor? Opposed? Okay.
Thank
Rolling through. Ryan, I think I've got it under control.
Is it further public?
Well, I kind of saw that look. I thought, oh crap, what about that?
So I'm not Debbie Dixon. She is off at a conference right now, so I'm gonna take, I think she did it on purpose. This is our November meeting, which we had mentioned is now gonna be our big meeting for financial assistance each year. So just to give you a background on why that is because now the requests in our program have gotten so large, we offer principal forgiveness one time a year now, which is at our November meeting. Now, you said we just did it in June. That was catching up from IIJA money, but from now on, it's a one time a year offering, and it is at our November meeting. So what you should anticipate is a lot of financial assistance in November and smaller loan only packages coming the rest of the year now. The reason is that we are getting more requests for that principal forgiveness dollars than we have dollars. That wasn't always true. In the past, sometimes we would not get enough many requests as we had dollars. So we're doing it in a more competitive basis, looking at the project priority list and ranking them all at once. Before I go through the list, just to give you a little background on what we talked about in June, but how we kind of do the process is we establish through our grant for the EPA how much principal forgiveness we have. We can only give principal forgiveness, which is a grant by another name, remember, out of money we get that's new from EPA. We cannot, the money that we get that revolves into our fund, we're not allowed to give that out as principal forgiveness. So we are capped each year at the amount of, the portion of the new money we get that EPA says can be given out, and most times now has to be given out as principal forgiveness. So you'll see we came out with those figures, which you'll see in the presentation in a minute on what those were. We did a request for applications. We got a good group of applications in. We were able to review them, and if they were complete, we then went through a process of looking at whether they qualified for principal forgiveness, which is based on that rate burden factor. How high are their rates going, or are they going to go compared to their median household income? And then if their rates were getting too high, they qualified for principal forgiveness. Then we had to rank them, go according to the project priority list, and the highest ones first. So that's kind of the process we went through to get here, yeah.
When do you know how much money you're gonna get?
So we typically knew that around July, August of this year of how much, so we get two pots right now, two pots under each type of project. So under the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, we have what we call our base program that we've been getting forever, and then we have this IIJA additional money we got. But as if there's any congressionally directed spending, that takes away from the base funding, so usually June or August.
On the grant money, the principal forgiveness, when do you know kind of what that money is gonna, the amount that you're gonna have?
Yeah, August,
August.
yes.
So if you know in August, and you're gonna do it once a year, so I mean, if you're in some small community, that's gonna be your only way to do it. And you find you can't, and you just know that in December or first January, you can't apply for it till November.
So you can apply, but we only have enough money to hand it out once a year. We're exhausting all the money each time we hand it out in November.
I guess this is what I'm talking about. You gotta wait. If yours is December the 1st, or you're not gonna know anything till another year. That seems like poor service for our communities. So why couldn't you do it on a quarterly basis or something like this? I would say you wouldn't give it all out the first month, even though you might have requests for it. But if you could establish some priorities and not make the customer wait almost a year before they know anything.
Yeah, but I would think the problem with that is you don't know till August. And then it takes a certain period of time to get it. Well, actually, really, Roy, if you did it quarterly, you'd make them wait long.
The
Not
other thing
really.
is too, is you have to apply for the funds. So the funds have to be awarded. Then we have to go through an appropriation process with the legislature to be able to access the IIJ foot. So all of that there's a process on our end to be able to access them.
Sure.
So really, this is the first meeting that the funds are available. And in the whole grand scheme of things, I mean, it's a large sum of money, but in the whole grand scheme of things, it's not a large sum of money like you did with ARPA funds. And so this will be an annual allotment that we'll get over 5 years in Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act.
So
This seems like having to wait a year to get a decision. That seems,
So, yeah, we're trying to get, as soon as the funds come available to us in August, roughly August, when we know, and we actually don't get the money until the new fiscal year, federal fiscal year, which we're just in. So we're trying to get the money out as quick as we can by doing the November meeting. So from our thoughts on it is, so we have all these folks that qualify for principal forgiveness sitting there waiting. And then as soon as the money comes in, we're able to try to get as many of those funded as possible. Now, granted, you're right, once we fund, there's a limited amount of money, so, $10 million, once we hand out the 10 million, we won't have new money until next
I
year.
got that. I get that.
So I guess I think our fear is if we were to only hand out, say, 2.5 million of the 10 each quarter, so then all of a sudden we'd be, how do you draw that line on, who deserves it, and who doesn't get it, except for through the priority list or handing out all the money?
Well, the way you do it is you have a set of priorities. And so if you don't meet those, you do not have applicants that meet those priorities each quarter, you don't add out any.
So I think this thing, we have people meeting those priorities, then we have money. So we're not handing out money to people who don't meet priorities. Only people who meet those priorities, we have more people than we have money, not us.
The other thing that I'll add is we're communicating continuously that November's the time.
Yeah.
So you need to get on the project priority list. You need to do all these steps to be ready by November. So that's constant communication with the communities. We're out, giving presentations at Municipal League and, other water related conferences, all communicating this so that everybody's ready. And we want it to be this. We want it to be a tough decision and really have to work at it to be able to allocate those funds to the projects that need it the most.
Before I get started, because that's really you're gonna see a lot of projects. Any other questions on the process to how we got here? And then we can go individual projects if you have questions on it. I'm gonna, Chairman, if it's okay with you, I'll go through all of them and then have two different votes, one on new projects and one on any additional money. And then if anyone wants to pull a project out, they can, that's all right. All right, so we'll switch to the PDF. It's in your packet under, tab 4, I think. But it's gonna be also up on the screen, our recommendations. So, the first one is for the city of Bryant. It's the Spring Hill Gravity Sewer Main Upsize and Reroute. It is a loan in the amount of 1.8, a little over 1.8 million from the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. The next one is for the city of Clarendon, which is a sewer system improvement project. The total project cost is gonna be over 9.9 million. So we're recommending a loan in the amount of a little over 2.4 million and a loan with principal forgiveness of 7.4 million. So just to stop here for a second to make sure you know how we got to these numbers. They qualified because they were gonna go above the rate burden factor, but we're only recommending up to 75% on any one project. So they qualified for the 75% of their project, and they were number 3 or 4 on the project priority list. So that's why they got recommended for that. The next is the city of Clinton. This is a little over loan in the amount of a little over 5.4 million for wastewater improvements.
Do you show the rate on here, is what rate you're charging?
We show the factor, Commissioner. So the way we look at it is, remember, there's their rate, but really we want to compare their rate to their median household income. So, you know, that way you're looking at it closer to the economics of the community plus their rate. So we don't show the actual rate, but the rate burden factor.
Okay, I guess been in the lending business, we always have a rate.
Oh, interest rate, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about their rate they're charging their
No,
customers.
interest rate.
No, so the way the interest rates work is we have our published rates right now, which are 3.5% for 10 years, 4% for 20 years, and 4.5% for 30 years.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, I wasn't at pencil forgiveness, personally, but, no, so those are our current rates. Now, I will tell you that if they close their loan within 1 year, they're guaranteed those rates. If their project takes longer than a year to close, they'll get the prevailing rate.
Yeah.
So rates go up, but we lock it in. for
It's
1 year.
locked for a year.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I was thinking the rate burden factor.
Okay.
And I will say that is under the federal program. We are a 0.5 point higher under the state programs than the federal program. City of England. This is a loan in the amount of 4.2 million and a little over 4.2 million for sewer improvements in the city of England. City of Huntsville, this is a loan in the amount of $32.6 million for a wastewater treatment plant expansion project. The next is the city of Judsonia, which is a loan in the amount of a little over 2.7 million for wastewater treatment plant rehabilitation. The next is the city of Lincoln. This is a loan in the amount of a little over 1.4 million for phase 1 sewer rehabilitation.
I got a question.
Yes.
On the principal forgiveness, is the main item the median household income?
So it's a ratio of their rates compared to their median household income. So, for example, to get.
So you don't show the rates.
No, we show this rate burden factor. So what we do is we think that the water bill for a homeowner in a community shouldn't usually exceed 1.5% of the median household income for the community. So we take how much a household using 4,000 gallons uses for water, just water alone, not trash or sewer or anything else. We times that times 12, we divide it by the median household income for the community. And then we get this factor, because that's kind of the rule of thumb. If you start charging more than 1.5% of your your monthly bill is going to more than water, we start considering you to have rates that are excessive that qualify you for some level of principal forgiveness. We do it based on median household income because, we can't compare the same rate down to somewhere like, in the Delta to Northwest Arkansas, because you're looking at 22,000 median household income and 72,000. So we come up with this rate burden factor, and you can see we try to keep it. Now, in a lot of cases, it ends up going higher. One is because we only offer 75% principal forgiveness. We're always making a community put 25% in. The other is we have limited money. So we run out of money before we can fund everyone. You'll see we have some people we'll make these loan offers to, and they'll turn us down. You'll see the obligations later. And they don't have to accept it if they're only were wanting a grant from us. But we have to we look at this factor to determine it. Of everyone who qualifies for principal forgiveness, it goes to that project priority list. Then we have to fund them based on that ranking in the project priority list.
So it's more than just the household income, what they're paying for water already and what their water bill will be, considered against the household income.
That's right. That's the only way to
I
compare
couldn't
rates.
tell that by looking at
Yeah.
it.
No, and we've given that presentation, but it's a tough, it's a whole calculation we go through each time to say, how much is your 4,000 gallon water bill? It's not the average one for the community either. It's how much a person using exactly 4,000 gallons would be charged. Times 12 months, divided by whatever this number is for the community, gets you these factors. This is what they were before they got the loan. This is what we think they'll go to after the loan. This is someone that you can tell would have qualified for principal forgiveness, but we ran out before we got to the city of Lincoln on the project priority list. Because they're gonna go to 2.2 is how I know that they would have qualified. So when they come back in again, if we have available dollars and their project ranks high enough on the project priority list, they could qualify because their rates will already be above.
I just noticed one of them was $71,000 household income, but they got principal forgiveness.
So yeah, when we get to there, let's look at that one and I'll see where that one is. There's also some other things, remember that through IIJA, the EPA made it very difficult. They gave us money in these other pots that can only go for certain things. Like if it's an emerging contaminant project, it's all principal forgiveness and it doesn't matter what your rate burden factor. If you're treating what the EPA calls an emerging contaminant, PFOS, PFOA, manganese, even in Arkansas, you actually can get free money just because you're doing a special type of project. And we don't even have a choice. You can give a choice on who you give it to, but you don't have a choice on whether it's principal forgiveness or a loan. So that may be that one. All right, City Mayflower. This is a loan in the amount of a little over 12.4 million. This is a sewer system regionalization project with Conway. Next is the city.
On that, I was asked by a city council member there in Mayflower.
Mhm.
Is this another one where you ran out of forgiveness before you got to them?
It is. Now, they would have been very close, if you could see. So if we give out, we're giving it out in 25, 50, 70, chunks like that. So they were very close to the 1.5, but yeah, there's possible that they could have qualified if they would have been enough, but they're really close. So if we would have said, given them 25%, that likely would have dropped them below the. It says for ease of our administration, I'll just, keeping it at a 25% principal forgiveness, 75 loan, or 50-50 or 75-25 is how we do it, as opposed to doing crazy percentages. Because we hand the money out in that exact way. When we give a dollar, we give them 75 cents and 25 cents of every dollar as we hand it out. And if we start using crazy percentages, that gets really difficult on staff, hand out cents of them, so.
In your opinion, Ryan, what's the inflation done to these projects in the last 2 years?
No, it is increased. We have seen significant increases in all projects, inflation and also supply chain issues. Just the ability to get the products they need has been a big issue. So we've seen a big increase in project costs. It's why we held our rates low as long as we could last year. We only raised the rates in July of this year to these ones we're talking now. But no, we have seen significant increases in all costs. It's why.
Do you have a percentage in mind?
No, there's some engineers in the room that probably give you a good percentage of what they've seen. We've seen some projects come 20, 30% over. We have seen some, you gave a large loan to Beaver Water District last year, and their project actually came in under. So, it's kind of, tough to gauge, but generally we do, if you scroll down just slightly, maybe, because one thing where we put in a few years ago to help with this situation is, you're approving them for 1.24, but we can also give them another 12.4, I should say. We can give them another 1.24 with consultation with the chairman, just to take the bid over. So we can up the amount, this provision down here, we put this in here because of this issue you're talking about. Bids come back, they're high, they don't want to wait 2 months to come, we don't have time to come back to another full meeting. So if bids overrun by just 10%, we can call the chairman and get approval to do it. We don't do that a lot because either bids are way above 10 or or they're in budget, but that's why we put that provision in. All right. Back over. Is a loan in the amount of almost 1.7 million for lift station improvements and aerators. The next is the city of Stevens. This is a total package of a little over 1.3 million, with 359,000 and change being loan and 973,000 being a loan with principal forgiveness. This is one that you can see, even with giving them this amount, if they accept this package, their rates are gonna go high. Just taking on this amount of loan is gonna make their rates go to a higher amount. But obviously, this is the 75% principal forgiveness.
Because we've got so few users.
That's right. It's why we're encouraging regionalization across the state where communities want to, because you gotta get that user base up to a higher number to spread all those costs over if you want to keep rates lower than 3% of your image.
Sure.
El Dorado Rural Public Water Authority. This is a total financial package of 694,000 and change, with 173,680 being a loan and 521,000 and change being a loan with principal forgiveness. Next is the Holiday Island Suburban Improvement District number 1. This is a loan in the amount of 838,704 for ultraviolet disinfection improvements. The next is the Lost Bridge Village Sewer Improvement District number 1 and number 2. This is a total financial assistance in the amount of 932,308, with $233,077 being a loan and $699,231 being a loan with principal forgiveness for pump station replacement.
And that would be one of those that has a high, medium income.
It does, but if you can see, even with this, with giving them this split, their rates when they're done will be well over the 1.5. Just even taking on a little bit of debt. So even though, what this means for this community, and it doesn't show it exactly, they have a high median household income, but their sewer rates are really high, right? So at that median household income, they're already at 1.89. So that is I could do the math here, but that you're gonna have a very high monthly sewer bill, because at that median household income, you're at 1.8.
Where is Lost Bridge?
It is in Benton County.
Oh.
So, and this is one of the reasons we have the system we do is, even though they have a high median household income, at some point their rate gets high enough where, it's considered excessive, even at that high of a median household income. So you're probably talking, you might be talking $100 sewer bill alone at this kind of rate.
Money.
All right, the Bald Knob North Water Public Facilities Board. This is a total project cost of almost 1.2 million, with 299,925 being a loan and almost 900,000 in a loan with principal forgiveness. This is for water improvements. The next is the B Branch Public Water Authority, which will soon be a public water system. They're converting to a public system. This is a total financial package of almost 3.5 million, with a loan of 874,000 and change, and principal forgiveness in the amount of slightly over 2.6 million. And that's for, just water system improvements. Next is the Cedarville Waterworks Public Facility Board of Crawford County. This is a, loan in the amount of $723,194 for an extension to the Oak Ridge area. Next is the City of Alma, and this is maybe the one you were referring to earlier, Mr. Anderson. This is a emerging contaminants project. So this is emerging contaminants principal forgiveness in the amount of 6.2 million. So whereas they would not qualify otherwise, because they're doing manganese treatment, they qualify under the emerging contaminants pot of money that we've been given from EPA, which has to go to emerging contaminants and has to be given out as 100% free money. So that is 6.2 million to the city of Alma.
Who checks to be sure that they got manganese?
So
Contaminants?
So we work with the Department of Health and the technology. So this is the other thing
I
too.
think
We,
I got it.
you know, we don't give anyone money and then they tell us how they spend it. They tell us how they spend it and then we give them the money. So this is a good question because this money can only go for this project. Anything else that is manganese removal and part of the essential part of that equipment can't come out of the 6.2 million. So, and we'll be checking with, we'll be looking at the equipment and Department of Health will be reviewing the project.
Bruce thinks he might be getting some manganese.
Oh, I smell so.
It's a better deal than the low interest. That's what I should have applied for, 3% interest.
City of Alzheimer is doing a lead service line replacement project. This is another unique one because of IIJA. Lead service line dollars actually go out with a 0% interest rate. So this is a special pot of money that we get of the IIJA money. Half of it has to go to lead service line replacements. And only half of that can be given out as principal forgiveness. So we're gonna do a 50-50 loan and principal forgiveness with Alzheimer. And then this 207 goes out at 0% interest. The reason is because once it goes out and comes back, it just becomes normal dollars. We can spend on anything we want. So we have a hard time in Arkansas thinking we have enough lead service line replacement to even use a third of the money that EPA allocated for Arkansas. So, we're really excited about getting this money out in this project. Next is the city of
Glad
Gillette.
somebody has lead, huh?
Hey, yes, it's kind of funny. If we never take the money, it never revolves. But if we can use the money, it comes back into our revolving fund.
Are the various water agencies, are they aware of all these special things?
They are. And so there's two things we're doing there is, every system in the state has to do a lead service line inventory. And we actually are doing a contract with Department of Health, working with Department of Health, where we're helping them do that inventory for them in a lot of cases at no cost. And then if they do come in and find that they do have lead service lines, then we can come in with additional assistance in the future. So they do know about it, but two is, the first step is for them to inventory all their service lines. And then I said, we're even gonna provide that for most communities, hopefully at no cost.
Now that lead line, that's just to the meter.
No, that's meter to the house, meter
To the house?
to the main, yes, that's a new EPA requirement, not from us, but Health Enforces.
Well, do people have to change their water lines,
So potentially, so you definitely have to inventory, and then based on whether or not they're saying lead in the water, depends on what the mandatory replacement. But this is funding to do it potentially, either 50 cents on the dollar or free if they do have it. And we can fund both sides, to the meter and meter to house, which, is an unusual thing for a water system to have to deal from meter to house. That's normally the customer's responsibility, but not in this case. City of Gillette, this is a new 100,000 gallon elevated water storage tank. This is a total package of 1.26 million, with half of that being a loan and half of it being a loan with principal forgiveness.
Now, how did that occur with their median income and their LMI where they are?
Okay, so yeah, that's a good question. So they started out at only 0.76. So remember, 1.5 is the number we consider to be high. They didn't, that's why it's a 50-50. So 50% loan is what kicked them above the 1.5. So even at this median household income, they didn't, that their resulting is gonna be 1.6, but they started out at 0.75. It's why it's a 50-50 split instead of a 75-25. 70, if we'd given them 75% PF, they would not have hit the 150 mark. Yeah, 1.5.
I can't believe Gillette's got 585 people, you don't see five when you go through.
Well, and this is the thing, so a lot of systems serve outside their city limits. So that is definitely customers, not, population served, not necessarily people in the city. The next is the city of Holly Grove. This is a total financial package of a little over $510,000 for a water tank and plant building modifications. This is being recommended in a loan in $127,503 and a loan with principal forgiveness of slightly over $382,000. City of Humphrey, a total financial package in the amount of $1.113 million. This is another 50-50, so half of it going out as loan and half of it going out as principal forgiveness for water system rehabilitation. The city of Monette, water system improvements, a total financial package of a little over 1.5 million with a loan of 1.1 million in change and principal, along with principal forgiveness of 383,000 in change. The next is the city of Prescott. This is a total financial package of a little over 3.3 million with a little over 3 million in loan and a loan with principal forgiveness in the amount of 349,000 in change. City of Ratcliffe, asbestos cement main replacement. This is a loan in the amount of 1.595 million. City of Clinton for water improvements. This is a loan in the amount of 6.4 million in change. Conway County Water and Street District. This is a 24-inch wall.
Excuse me a second, Ryan. And we had Clinton, we had an earlier, wastewater, 5.4 million. So they have a wastewater improvements. So we got two loans with them.
So one would be, wastewater and one's water. So one will come out of your clean water state revolving fund and one will come out of the drinking water state revolving fund.
And while we're on that, this was one of the earlier ones. Their final rate's gonna be 2.96, way above the 1.5, and there was no principal forgiveness for them.
So, yeah, so when that occurs, what that means is that if we had money available, they would have qualified, but their project, we ran out of money before we got to their project.
That's it.
Now, they can decline it and reapply next, try to get money next year, but we wanted to go ahead and make them the offer. So if they needed the project and had no other choice, we are still the best interest rates anyone can get, so.
So the order, these order that we're looking at is not related to the time that they applied, nor is it related to alphabetical. What order, as we're going through these, I don't see the order that we're getting to. It's not alphabetical and it's not
The
time.
order of funding,
So, sorry.
yeah, the order of funding. What you're saying.
Yeah, so I think,
Order of, that can't be true if it's order of.
No,
funding.
no, I'm saying that's what your
So,
question
yeah.
is. Yeah,
what we did is we went through wastewater first, it looks like, and now we're going through drinking water projects alphabetically. So yeah, once we switched, we switched over, we came back because, and now there is a little, I guess, whether it's on the city, so the C on city, not the name of the town. So it alphabetized them based on the word city of. So that's why you see so many there in the city of category. And then we'll move on to the state funded programs next. So it's clean water, alphabetical, drinking water, alphabetical, I think, and then state funded.
Hey, Ryan, what's the chances somebody that's getting some principal forgiveness, that they decide that they're not gonna do it? So what you're saying is that would come back in to the pool, but we're gonna be another year before we can obligate. Is that right?
So generally, yeah, we haven't had that occur yet, because this is the first year we've done it in this way, we've had to allocate all because we had so many requests. If we had a large amount, then that'd be a decision you could allocate it mid-year, or you could hold it until mid-year.
You need to turn that volume up.
Hold the money until next November, so that everyone who wants a chance at it has a chance at it, right? Everyone knows that November is the meeting. If you get your application in and get scored, you'll be in the same competition as opposed to, us having to put out in March, we have $2 million for the PF, apply. We get 50 applications for the $2 million. You see what I'm saying? That's why we would recommend you do it once a year, but you could allocate it at any time.
Let me ask, do you anticipate somebody that's getting principal forgiveness to not do their project?
We do anticipate some, but not one of these that's getting a lot. We're looking at a smaller amount coming back. Most times we talk the folks into it if there's principal forgiveness that, hey, this is the best, you're not gonna get a better, they only would turn it down if they thought they could get a better offer later. And our system is consistent. So if they got this offer this time, they're gonna get the same offer next time.
Unless the pot of money is different.
Well, yeah, unless they're one of those folks that we ran out of money before we got to them, and we know who those folks are and can talk to them. Some people need their project so bad that they can't wait on next November, and they go for the loan. But other folks, if you're planning way in advance and you think you can go a year, we might recommend. Now, there's no guarantee next year that their project is gonna be any higher on the project priority list though, right? They could go a year and not get funded. The project priority list, drinking water, for example, is scored by the health department. So projects are coming in based on their score. It's not a first in, first come scenario. It's a scored scenario. All right, Conway County Rural Water Distribution District, 24-inch raw water line and water filter number 6. This is a loan in the amount of a little over $8.4 million. Grand Prairie Regional Water Distribution District. This is the water system consolidation with Humnoke. So as we talked earlier, this is a regionalization project to regionalize Humnoke into Grand Prairie. This is a total project cost of over $2.8 million, with $716,000 being a loan and a little over $2.1 million being a loan with principal payments. North Garland County Rural Water District, water treatment plant, storage tank, and transmission line. This is a total financial package of over $17.9 million, with $13.4 million in change being a loan and $4.4 million in change being a loan with principal forgiveness. The next one is the Saline Regional Public Water Authority. This is a new and unique and exciting project we funded that I need to probably do a little more explanation on. This is a brand new regional water system being put in on the Washita River. They are total, their need $175 million. They're seeking $125 million of it from us. They will be a raw water provider to cities in Saline County. So it's going to be a new new treated water or new water provider. You'll see, we weren't able to underwrite them in the traditional way because they don't exist except for, as a board right now. There's no assets, there's no income, there's nothing. So we are asking you to approve this, but with some conditions. So we call it conditional approval. You can see the conditions there. We need them to enter into binding contracts with each of the cities to be able to, so that we can guarantee that the repayment on $125 million will be made. We need them to get themselves rated under S&P or Moody's, even if it's a rating, meaning that they have a low rating. No rating hurts us when we go to leverage. We want them to only close on this bond when we know the total project cost, that everything's been designed and ready to bid, and we need them to get their other financing in place at the time of closing. So we are asking you to conditionally approve this one. It's a little unique, but you can understand we can't really underwrite them because they don't have assets, they don't have customers yet. So
They don't have any collateral.
What?
They don't have any collateral.
No collateral, right. So really what we want to make sure is when we put $125 million in, that ultimately they can deliver water and that those cities are guaranteed to pay it back because they're getting water, that they're required to buy the water. So even though it is a large amount of money, this will take several years, I think, before we see the money go out, but it is that's why we want to go ahead and get them financing so they can go forward with a project that they know they have financing. But we have a lot of conditions on it that you don't see in your normal authorizations to make sure that when we put the money out, that we are gonna get repaid.
Do we take collateral on any of these loans?
Ooh. Brian, when we do a bond, is it
Not
collateralized?
a bond.
What?
These are on the loans that we do.
Well, we'll do a bond on it ultimately. So is that considered collateral?
Traditionally, it's just a pledge of water and sewer revenue.
Yeah, just revenue
Time to
pledge,
time,
okay.
there is some mortgage granted.
Which what you just said is why we came up with the conditions we did. We want to make sure that one, that we have enforceable contracts with all the cities. And that the project will deliver water so that those contracts are enforceable. We put those two things in. So one is we want to know that the full cost that the project is gonna be built. You know, what the scenario we don't want to get into as a bank is we're 50 million in and then they can't go forward with the project. Because then we can't get our money back from there's no water to be sold at that point. We can't get our money back and they can't move forward because, you know, there's nothing. So the 50 million is at risk. So we put those conditions in place to handle that issue.
The other loans, we don't take collateral on that either, I'm assuming.
They're all a bond, usually on pledged revenue. We have had some loans in the past under GeoBond where we actually did have some collateral because we've taken asset property. We own some property that came from some old loans.
Okay.
Ryan, the North Garland County, we've got principal forgiveness here, nearly $5 million. The initial rate burden factor is 112 and the final is 145.
So if we had, remember I was saying, we did this in 25, 50 or 75. So if we had made this a 50-50, that number would have gone really high. You see what I'm saying? Over 2.
Okay.
So, you know, we had, because we're not doing these off percentages like a 30-63, you know, those kind of things. We were here at, you know, so if we went and we toggled it, we said, okay, what if we made this a 50-50? Now they went to 2. So we go with the option that gets us as close to keeping at 1.5. But using that administrative thing of only doing it on the 25, if that makes sense. If we start doing the 33-63, sometimes it gets, you know, we could have given them slightly more loan and slightly lowered this to get this to hit 1.5, but it would have been a weird percentage.
I see.
So we sat there in the room and we configured it, we underwrite these in all scenarios. 100% loan to 20, you know, and we came up with the one that best fit the 1.5.
Okay.
As a personal water user there with a lake home, I appreciate it.
Raise that thing.
All right, next is the Grange Calamine Water Association. This is a loan in the amount of 1.1 million. So this is under the state program now. So if you're gonna, first question you ask is, why is the loan higher than the project cost? Because under state program, we charge a 3% administrative fee. So that is the loan, plus the cost plus it. So this is under the Water Development Fund, a state funded program for the water solar array. The reason we're putting such a large project in the state program is doing solar arrays make our bond council nervous because most times they're getting more out of the solar than just what they need for their operation. And so if they're net metering or selling solar back, that creates a tax issue. Now, that's all the stuff about lowering, I know, is that's why we put a large project in the state program, but we have the funding. So that's a $1.1 million loan out of the state program. Parthenon Water Association is a $65,920 loan out of the Water Sewer Solid Waste Fund. Once again, each of these we see has our 3%, generally has our 3% fee in it. City of Caldwell is a $181,521.02 loan out of the Water Development Fund for meter replacement. Wildwood Water Association is a $792,000, $792,000 and change loan out of the Water Sewer Solid Waste Fund. for water system improvements. City of Kensett is a $439,849 loan out of the water sewer solid waste fund for wastewater treatment plant levy repair. The next, City of Russellville is a loan out of the Water Development Fund for $46,350 for a mobile hydration station. Next is another project with Wildwood Water Association, which is an elevated storage tank. This is a loan in the amount of a little over $1 million out of the Water Sewer Solid Waste Fund. Next is the City of Arkansas City, which is drainage improvements. This is a loan out of the Water Development Fund for over $2.7 million. Once again, that's another project because it's drainage improvements that doesn't fit under the federal program while we put it in the state program. The next is a grant to the Arkansas Environmental Training Academy for $122,922. Why we give them a grant is they provide that 605 training. So what we committed to, the training under what Jay was talking about earlier, retail water provider, all the community, all the water systems are required to do it. However, 2 years ago, you approved this and we are now increasing it to do another year, fully funding the training. So no community has to go out of pocket for training, for the 605 training. So that's for the Arkansas Environmental Training Academy. The next is an increase in funding for the septic tank remediation program operated by the Illinois River Watershed Partnership. It's an additional $100,000 to extend that program 1 additional year. That is additional funding out of the Clean Water SRF. And the last one is $500,000 in additional funding to H2 Ozarks for the septic tank remediation program. They operate it in 2 watersheds, the Upper White River watershed and the Buffalo River watershed. When we extended their program into the Buffalo River, we did not increase funds at that time. So this is really the first, probably $500,000 of getting the Buffalo River watershed fully added into their funding. So we anticipate this going another year after this, but obviously we're only committing to 1 more year of extending the program for the Upper White and the Buffalo River. Whew. Okay, go back.
What was the total
Oh, 1 second. Go back to the.
On all of them?
Yeah, go back to that. I have it on a slide.
Slide, okay.
65.
Yeah.
10 million here, 10 million. I'm assuming you're talking about. real money.
Yeah.
265 is what I recall, 40 projects.
All right, so what we're asking you to approve in new funding requests is under the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, loans in the amount of a little over 69 million, and we had,
Sorry.
we had in 9.6 million in principal forgiveness, so we fully, that's how much we had to give out, we're exhausting that fund, with maybe a few dollars here, remaining. Under the Drinking Water State Revolving Loan Fund, it was loans in the amount of 169 million. Remember, 125 million of that is one entity. And then principal forgiveness in almost 12.5 million. So that's exhausting our principal forgiveness if you approve this. And then under the 2 state programs, we're looking at about 6.4 million in funding out of the 2 state programs. Next. One more. And then these are the 2 additional funding for the 2 septic tank programs. And then that 1 grant to the Environmental Training Academy to do the 605 training. So, and with that, if any questions or approval.
Ryan, could you remind me, from a process perspective on these loans and the grants, especially you require competitive bids?
We do. They have to meet full state procurement law.
Any other questions for Ryan?
Make a motion, we approve.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed?
Good job.
That's pretty simple, right?
Yeah, Debbie's not gonna be gone another November, I'll tell you that.
All right, next on the agenda, Commissioner Anderson has a report for the Water Well Construction Committee.
Yes, sir. We had a meeting November 1st with Zoom. The regular meeting of the Water Well Construction Committee was held via Zoom November 1 with staff meeting in the bio room. Since the August 31st committee meeting that I reported last commission meeting, staff has received signed consent agreements and fine payments from all three of the active water well cases, so we did not have to have a trial. They just pleaded guilty and paid up. These cases are now closed. Staff observed well installation occurring without a registered driller and apprentice on site. During the inspection, a warning letter and explanation of the rules have been sent in response to this violation. Staff trained 4 water well contractors to use the online well construction database system. Staff visited water well contractors who have not been submitting well construction reports and will continue to pursue compliance with these contractors and their reports. 2 improperly sealed wells were identified, and staff is working to identify and contact landowners of these wells. Staff continues to work with our web developers to improve new construction report database. Staff completed 2 weeks of continuous field work assisting with the Mississippi River Valley alluvial aquifer fall synoptic measurements. We had the consideration of 4 applicants for recent drillers and pump installers. Staff reviewed and approved 5 apprentice applications for following driller and pump installer apprentices. That's just kind of the report of the meeting. We do have an action item. The state of Missouri, the staff desires, and so does the committee, desires reciprocity agreement with the state of Missouri, where their licensure would be valid in Arkansas and the Arkansas license would be valid in Missouri. And I need a motion if everybody's in favor of that or wants to ask Chris a question about it.
Any questions? That's really just us looking at the requirements in Arkansas, requirements in Missouri, they're very similar. And we just want to streamline that. So if somebody gets their license in Missouri or gets their license in Arkansas, I mean, it's the same thing.
And that's not lowering our standard. That's a pretty comparable standard.
Yeah, in fact, their standards are a little bit higher than ours. So, but we shall see if they're in agreement with us, but we want to at least pursue that because it makes it easier on the contract.
So move.
Second.
And I think we ought to do that with any neighboring state that does not lower our requirements.
I agree.
And we're actually looking at the other states too.
Yeah.
But we had, with this one in particular, Missouri is kind of the first place to go.
We need to take a yes vote.
All in favor?
And that's all I have.
When were those, when did the commission be merged?
They were already murdered.
When will they start meeting with us?
Well, no, so that commission was abolished. And so what happened is those duties rolled under the Natural Resources Commission.
Well, didn't we take on, somebody that was on that commission to be on this commission?
So the committee, Mr. Anderson chairs, has 2 of the former water well construction commissioners on that committee. And so that committee basically reviews, any sort of water well related issue and then makes a recommendation.
But one of those will not become a member of this.
Eventually, eventually the governor will have the ability to appoint somebody that works in that industry to this.
Will have to be 2. Is that correct?
To the way it's written in legislation.
Any other questions? If not, Chris, you're up with the director's report.
All right, so, been busy since our last meeting, you all approved.
I made it.
Yes, good job. You all approved our general obligation bond work plan, at the September meeting, so that thing is still moving in process, so we have been in communication with DFA and had their review, so we've done that, we've had communication with the governor's office, and now it's being sent for legislative review, hopefully will be on, before the peer committee, legislative committee in December. And so that just keeps moving on our general obligation bond work plan. which is for $60 million. This gives us the authority to do that. We'll still have to do the individual bond issuance when it's time, but this gives us the authority. We also executed an agreement with Virginia Tech on the Alliance project. You remember a long time ago, I gave a report about the Wright project. But there's a climate smart commodities project that looks to implement practices on the ground in Arkansas. That project changed its name, is now called the Alliance Project, but it was funded at $80 million. And then there's 4 pilot states. Arkansas happens to be one of them. We are the project lead, Natural Resources Department of Agriculture for the project in Arkansas. And so we'll be working with the Association of Arkansas County, Conservation Districts. We'll be working on with 6 to 7 conservation districts to implement the practices on the ground. We'll be targeting about 800 to 1,000 acres for producers in the state. It's $100 per acre for implementation. And we have some targets. Our target for cropland acres is about 74,000 acres. Pasture range acres is about 30,000 acres, and then about 22,000 animal units. And so we're just now getting the project going. It'll be about $15 million for landowner payments in the state. It's a flat $100 an acre fee, or payment to them if they'll participate in this practices. We have a whole slew of NRCS practices, whether it be crop practices, rice practices, or livestock practices.
But they're gonna come through EQIP or CSP or?
It's totally separate. So the payments will actually come from Virginia Tech to the producer. And so this was there was all that funding for climate smart related practices, and this is coming through that particular program. And so we have some other partners in the state that are Rice Federation is one of the partners, Ag Council is also early on was one of the partners. So we're excited about it. The practices, a lot of the same practices that they're targeting for, climate smart are good practices for water quality, water conservation, a lot of the same things that we are interested in. So it's a good way to get, check a couple of different boxes by implementing it. All the work will run through the conservation districts. So there's money there for the districts to hire a technician to work with the landowners on the ground.
Have counties that's gonna be in this program, have they been identified?
They have, it's Jefferson, Arkansas, Drew, Lincoln, St. Francis, Craighead, and Cleveland. Now, I will say we picked those very early on in the process because we were the only rice producing state of the 4 states. So you've got Minnesota, North Dakota, Virginia, and Arkansas. But after the program rolled out, they added us some pasture range acres and some animal units. So Cleveland County, Drew County kind of helped us pick up some of those. I think we'll be able to meet all of our targets. We continue to work with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on the state water plan update. Right now, they're in the process of selecting the contractor that will lead that effort in the state. Hopefully, you'll have that contractor in place, before the end of the year. Jason Funkhauser with the Corps is here, and hopefully he'll give us an update on that as far as where they are in their process. We really have nothing to do except get all of our reports and start building our contact list right now until they select their contract. Once the contractor is selected, then it's going to be go time. We have initiated a strategic planning process focused on conservation districts. So we're working with Ray Ledgerwood, BoardWorks by Ledgerwood. And so we had a half-day session last week where we brought a lot of our partners together, AACDE, AACD, NRCS, to start thinking about how conservation districts function, strengths, weaknesses, all those things. We have a 2-day session planned in December where we'll have about 30 folks. So that'll involve cooperative extension, game and fish, and a bunch of folks coming together to really think about and take a close look at conservation districts, the way they function. Where do we see, low hanging fruit that can help them? Where are changes that need to be made? So I think this will be a good process. It's been a long time since we've done that as a state, and pulling all those folks together. We'll have several folks from conservation district boards participating. So it should be good. William Anderson will be participating both as a commissioner here and as a conservation district board. So we'll host that 2-day session in mid-December. And then we are working with, RDOT. So it's the Highway Department on the sale of the Days Creek Mitigation Bank. So that's a 444 acre mitigation bank that's owned by, Natural Resources. We haven't really been involved in the mitigation banking business in a long time. They can use the mitigation bank. It still has available credits that they can use. And so we are in the process of transferring it to them. It will be a sale to them. So they've got their right-of-way division out there doing appraisal work, doing survey work. And that's what they're doing.
Where is that mitigation bank located?
It's down in Miller County, adjacent to the Sulphur River Wildlife Management. So it's on Days Creek. It still has available wetland and stream credits, and they can really use the credits. And so that's something that we've been in communication with them really for over a year on them taking that bank over, and they can use it. So it's a good win-win all the way around. And then Arkansas will host the 38th Hypoxia Task Force public meeting and executive session in December. So we're the host state. So we'll have 11 other states. So there are state agency representatives and federal partners here in the state, in Fayetteville in December. And so it's an honor to be able to host them, and our staff has been very busy, Ryan and Tate working on that. And so that's a good thing. As y'all may recall, we did receive some Hypoxia Task Force dollars for us to try to help reduce nutrients. Ultimately, they make it into rivers that make it all the way down to the coast. So one of the things that we were looking at was 2-stage ditch work in some of the counties that have highly erodible soils, and way to build basically a bench within the ditches so that they don't erode, agricultural lands. That is it for my report. Happy to take any questions. But busy time.
I think we had a presentation on that second that did,
Yeah, I think Tate did that. Yeah.
That's right, that was good.
Yeah. So, but it's an honor for all these folks to come to Arkansas. We'll have a big group here in December.
Any questions for Chris?
Where will y'all be meeting at?
In Fayetteville? Or
This group?
It's meeting at the Chancellor, the Graduate Hotel. It used to be the Chancellor Hotel there in Fayetteville, right kind of in the square.
Next we have the financial assistance report.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members. On the financial report for the period ending October 31, 2023, resources provided through the end of this reporting period total right around 1.4 million, including repayments. Disbursement through the end of October, 566,000, with 5,795,000 in outstanding commitments, including our emergency reserve and 5 new financial assistance requests, totaling $4,138,976. This leaves $2,178,239 available for future water development projects. On water, sewer, solid waste, the resources provided through the end of this reporting period total right around $3,187,864.36. All repayments. Disbursements through the end of October total right around 54,000 and some change, with $13,427,399.47 in the outstanding commitment, including the emergency reserve and 4 new financial assistance requests, totaling $347,350. This leaves $3,123,333 available for future, waste, water, sewer, solid waste projects. On the general obligation bonds, no new obligations to report. Our oral commitment still at $284,000. That concludes the financial report.
Any questions? I do. Next, we've got our partner reports.
Good morning, my name is Kristen Whitmore. I'm gonna start off, I've not ever been here before, representing Amanda and Roger and several people that you guys are used to seeing. I'm new on the staff as an initiative program specialist. I'm not new to the agency. I grew up in Clinton on a cow-calf operation. Our family farm is something we're really proud of. We have a century farm. So it's been in our family since 1902. I actually started in college with NRCS in Royce County, at Russellville, and then went from there. And so I currently live in Berryville, up in Northwest Arkansas, but I drove a long way this morning to be with you guys. And Mike and Amanda are in Minnesota, and Roger. So I got to be here today, and I look forward to giving you this report. If you have any questions, and I don't know them, I'll be glad to find out, but I should know most of them. So we have a lot going on, a lot. As program activity really begins to ramp up for this year, there's some efforts that I need to highlight. The Environmental Quality Incentives Program sign up will close December the 8th. For this year, we are announcing signups together for CSP and the EQIP. That's different than in the past. We've separated those. IRA, CIC, MRBI, and other initiatives are all part of this same announcement. We have expanded opportunities now for Act Now, and we will be announcing those signups later this fall. Act Now will include urban, high tunnel, IRA, soil health, IRA energy, and CSP urban. Our summary of how we broke out our money this year on percentage wise, our top end things that we're putting a focus on is our locally led with our conservation districts, socially disadvantaged, wildlife, and the Arkansas Groundwater Initiative. Then we have the Inflation Reduction Act. We've all been hearing this chatter. It is provided unprecedented funding for several of our existing programs that we implement. Through this Inflation Reduction Act, we have enrolled more farmers and more acres in voluntary conservation programs than at any point in history. Following a backlog that we've had in the past, in 23, we enrolled nearly 53 additional producers in programs across all 50 states. So with this, this will provide significant climate mitigation benefits, $100 million going to ACEP, the Agriculture Conservation Easement Program, $250 million going to our CSP, and $250 million going to EQIP. In total, the Inflation Reduction Act provides $19.5 billion over 5 years to support USDA's oversubscribed conservation programs. And it represents the single largest investment in climate and clean energy solutions in American history. IRA CSP this year is focused soil health and rice in the Delta counties for a little over 11 million. NIPS IRA is statewide with funds allocated up to 1.26 million, with possible that some of those CSP renewals could also be obligated with IRA funds. IRA EQIP strategies will be soil health, energy, CAFO, forest wildlife, CIC grazing, and rice irrigated cropland. So under soil health, we're gonna do 9 million. Energy and CAFO is 9 million. Forestry and wildlife is 4.5 million. Grazing is 9 million. Rice and irrigated cropland is 9 million. So we streamlined, the USDA streamlined the RCPP Arkansas projects, received 50 million, a little over 50 million as part of the 1 billion investment. For this year's projects that were funded, one of those is expand and evaluate private investment in partnership with NRCS. So our lead partner on that is Restore the Earth for 25 million. Restore the Earth, in collaboration with 4 partners, will implement a 55 million public-private partnership in which private sector funds will invest with NRCS to achieve environmental and social goals. The project targets U.S. held easements to restore marginal cropland to its previous forested condition in Arkansas. Another project that was funded this year is protecting and enhancing wildlife habitat and water quality of conservation reserve program tracts under the threat of conservation in the lower Mississippi alluvial valley. Our lead partner on that is the Mississippi River Trust, and that's another 25 million that was granted here. That is the Protecting Wildlife and Water Quality in the Lower Mississippi Alluvial Valley project will convert approximately 7,500 acres of bottomland hardwood and wetland conservation CRP tracts to permanently protected U.S. held conservation easements. We are the lead state on that, but Louisiana and Mississippi are also included in that 25 million. Northwest Arkansas Small and Urban Farm Preservation is our third one, for 650,000. The Northwest Arkansas Land and Trust is our lead partner. They are going to, their project will permanently protect 60 to 120 acres of small and urban farmland with prime soils of statewide significance, in addition to the farmland and grasslands within targeted parcels. So when we talk about the Farm Bill and Inflation Reduction Act providing the funding for these RCPP projects, over the next 5 years, the nationwide total is 77 climate-focused projects, 22 projects focused on water quality and conservation. 3 RCPP classic projects are led by tribes. 16 projects support and protect the restoration of wildlife corridors, and 10 projects focus on urban. We also have 2 NWQI projects in the lower Bayou, Bartholomew, and portions of Drew, Deshay, and Ashley County, and the lower Little Red in portions of White and Jackson County. We have 2 MRBI new projects of the Honeycrisp, Buffalo Creek, portions of Craighead and Mississippi counties, and the lower Strawberry in portions of Lawrence, Sharp, and Independent counties. WRE and ALE, we just published our sign-up dates that we are having 2 batch periods, November 30th and February 29th. The cutoff for these applications was today. We will primarily be going with our backlog for IRA, so if you've already applied, they will be considering you for IRA funding as well. Anyone who would specifically like to apply for IRA that doesn't meet today's deadline, it is a continuous enrollment, so you should go ahead and sign up even after today's date. We will still be considering all those applications after today's date as well for this year's funding. The biggest takeaway that I can say to take back is, in all years past, we have ran our CSP and our EQIP signups separate, and this year we're running them as continuous. So if you know somebody or people that want to sign up, they need to sign up now. December the 8th is the deadline for EQIP and CSP. Also, I'd like to remind you guys that our state technical committee meeting is November the 28th. And then I want to add a little short bullet here. We are hiring a lot of entry-level positions. Our HR process is pretty ridiculous, to be perfectly honest. but there's a huge backlog with that. They say we're working on it, but I don't think we're where we need to be, but we are in the process of hiring a lot of new people. And so we are looking for high quality candidates. So if you know anybody that's interested in coming over to
This is what you're
URCS,
looking at.
do what?
This is what you're looking at.
So it was funny when I asked for this information. We currently have a soil conservation, two district conservationists, a soil conservation technician, a program support specialist, admin, 2 foresters, public affairs, soil scientists, agronomists, program assistants, and an civil engineer. But there's a whole lot more coming, but they weren't forthcoming of those particulars, but it's gonna be all across the state. I mean, when you look at how much extra money we're getting, you know, and I came from the field, I was a DC for a long time. So when we start talking about trying to spend this much money, it's not a problem right now because we have a huge backlog in most field offices of applications that haven't been funded. But I think moving forward, it's gonna be the challenge of, you know, doing outreach and getting the word out to people because, I mean, we're talking about a lot of money that more than what we're used to having and what we're used to seeing. And to do that, you know, we've got to hire more people or we can't get it done. And then I think it's gonna be really important from a partnership standpoint, you know, to include with Quelfer, you know, all these partners that we work with, to try to be on the same page and moving forward, because, you know, you get too many people in the kitchen and nobody knows what each other are doing, then it's a problem for our producers. And so I don't want to see that be a problem. But I think if a producer is interested in signing up today, now's the time. If they've ever been on the fence about, well, I've signed up, you know, 3 times and I don't ever get funded, you know, it's time to sign up. But we are in the process. These actual positions have flown. They're on USA Jobs. And so, if you know anybody that would qualify or be interested, it's a good time to come on to the agency.
Is it like an age limit?
You know, I hear there's not.
You're close.
I hear there's not.
How about a physical?
I'll put a good word in for you, okay?
What about a physical requirement?
Yes, go
You might want to stick that on him.
I'm gonna make you. But, that's all I have today. Do you guys have any questions for me or comments or, thoughts? I appreciate you letting me be here today and be happy to answer any questions if you think of anything later too.
Is Don Richardson, you're on?
He is, don't hold that against me. You either love him or hate him.
I love old Don.
Yeah, I do too.
Thanks for driving down.
Yeah, glad to meet y'all today. Thanks.
All right. UAPB, it's Dr. McGowan with us.
That's what I'm looking
Then, AEDQ.
Morning, everyone. I'm Stacy Waffle, here to report on behalf of DEQ. First, we have new leadership in the Office of Water Quality. And so I have been named as the new Associate Director of the Office of Water Quality. And my new Deputy Associate Director is Bailey Taylor. Unfortunately, she was previously engaged in another meeting and not able to attend today so that I could introduce y'all to her in person. Just a couple of quick points that we have going on. First, we are still prioritizing our permit applications for ARPA recipients. Thank you, Ryan and Debbie, for keeping us apprised of all of those different recipients, so that way we can make sure that we are processing those permits timely. We are currently building and migrating our data into a new program. It's called Seek. And we are expecting our first permit to go live around January of 24. And it's going to be the construction stormwater general permit. So right now, all of those permits are submitted to DEQ through our e-portal system. Seek is very similar, and our e-portal is a small component of the overall Seek program. So it will be very similar, but now Seek will house all the data that is now in multiple databases. We're gonna be able to pull it all together into one platform. So pretty excited about that. Shortly following construction stormwater general permit will be the industrial stormwater general permit, and that will renew this summer. So that will be the first really big one for everyone to renew in the new system. And then the last thing that I have is we have been continually working with Department of Agriculture on moving those Rule 5 permits over to your program. And we really want to thank Chris Colclaser and his team for all of their communications and our collaborative efforts to make that a successful transition. And that concludes my report. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. AACD. No. Okay, what's that? Didn't see the setback.
Good morning, I'm John McAlpine with, President of the Arkansas Association of Conservation Districts. Thank you for allowing me to update you on the association activities. We have completed the soil health, grazing lands, grant, that we partnered with, extension on, Mike Daniels. We have an ongoing, feral swine agreement that's gone through the department as well as from money from NRCS. That's been extended 1 year to be able to use those additional funds to continue to do, feral hog trapping, in the pilot counties in the state. Chris has already covered the Alliance, which is formerly the RIGHT program. We're having a meeting on November the 27th at the Grand Prairie Center in Stuttgart to go with training, get districts on board about hiring, what's going to be part of the rollout of that, coordinate those with the districts that are involved. We also have a grant from NRCS to help hire a environmental coordinator to really help talk about conservation and youth in our schools. And so it's going to be an area where we're going to be able to expand some youth education on conservation activities. That's a 3-year agreement for 24, 25, and 26. We'll have a meeting. The Environmental Planning Committee will be meeting Thursday to go over job specifications. I think we're looking for that potential person to bring on. A couple of other things, we've applied for grants to help build district capacity. The National Association, there have been some grants available there, so we've applied for that technical assistance grant to hire me to help districts build capacity. Also, we've applied for a feral swine exclusion fencing, which is kind of the first time there's been this NRCS money that's gone through the National Association that now the states are applying for. So we applied for that. The request is $450,000 request. And that's basically looking at protecting domestic hog operators from disease from feral hogs, as well as some specialty crops. Trying to really, they're not, a lot of this fence is pretty expensive. So that money doesn't go very far. So we really had to pick high target areas to deal with that. We're still working on the district relations training for the districts. Our annual meeting of AACD will be February 28th and 29th at the Wyndham. Along with the Conservation Partnership Program, doing strategic planning we're part of. The state association is also having our own strategic planning, looking at the state association immediately before the Conservation Partnership Refuge and regulator with the same facility of both of those. And this, my report, I'll answer any questions if I can. If not, I'll find the answers later. Any questions?
Well, on the feral hog, have y'all received the money on the feral hog? The fencing or just applied?
No, we've applied for that. And I do not know
on the award timeline on that. I know it's a national competitive, money on that. Okay. And of course, we're still monitoring on the farm bill at the time. Then, DC's gonna be behind on that.
Yeah.
So,
I just saw another article came out about, many of the members wanted to see the feral hog work continue, as part of the farm bill.
yeah, it's one of the things we're working at nationally, and seeing if we can expand it outside of some of the pilot area. We've had some pretty good success. Can we expand that? But right now, with those funds that were as part of the pilot project are tied to those counties we've identified, we cannot go outside that county boundary with those funds.
Excellent. All right. Next, we've got University of Arkansas Cooperative Extension. I see Dr. Daniels, on here.
Good morning. Sorry I couldn't be there with you in person today. But it is my pleasure to report to the board and the commissioners. And Lord, let me just start by saying that it was our pleasure to serve on the Nutrient Reduction Strategy Innovation Grant and the communications, our committee and the communications committee. We came out with 8 recommendations out of our innovation grant, and that should be being released pretty shortly. So be looking for that. I really appreciate the work that Tate Wentz and Katie Mann did in working with us on that committee. If you haven't heard, we have a new director of extension, Dr. John Anderson. He is currently the department head of the Ag Economics Department at Fayetteville, but he's going to be coming to Little Rock and joining us January 2nd. I'm really excited about him. I think he will be a great director to work with soil and water conservation. One thing I would like to mention is that we do have established a new forestry and wildlife discovery farm with the Daniel Farm, which is owned by Dan Rowe and his family down near Camden, Arkansas. It's about 600 acres of timberland, but we're really excited about doing some work. We're going to start looking at carbon measurements and estimating carbon sequestration rates and doing wildlife and forest management demonstrations and studies on that farm. And finally, the last thing I'd like to talk about is I'm hearing more and more concern from people about what's the quality of our well water for agricultural use. In Eastern Arkansas, we can have high pH in our well water that can interfere with the efficacy of pesticides. We also went through the new regulations on the Modern Food Safety Act. Producers have to measure and report. They have to monitor and report their water quality. But I'm especially concerned for those that irrigate with our groundwater. We've always been concerned about the quantity, but I think we need to be concerned with things high pH, high alkalinity, and also high salinity, high chloride values, high sodium values in our well water. And it's something I think that it's a growing concern that we need to maybe through the Arkansas Conservation Partnership somehow address in the future. With that, I'll end my report. Thank you very much.
Question for Dr. Daniels?
What causes the change in the well water concerns that you have?
I don't know what's causing the concerns. I'm just getting more and more calls from irrigation users with concerns. We did know back down in DeShay and Chico County back in the 90s, the Conservation District did a big study of wells, and we found a lot of them with excess salts in them. I don't know if it's saltwater intrusion. I really don't know. I looked at some different reports, and we do have some alkaline. We do have lime in our groundwater in Eastern Arkansas, and so that is a concern. And now this Modern Food Safety Act is requiring those that use groundwater for irrigation on foods that are eaten raw or as rinse water have to have that water tested. And I'm not sure of all those requirements, but I really wish I knew more about it to tell you what was causing these changes. I just think we're starting to run into more and more problems.
Roy, in my part of the state, a lot of that is pocketed, like around Brinkley. There's high salt content south of Brinkley. If you're where I'm at, it's high iron. If you go up towards Desark, it's high calcium. Why it's that way, I couldn't tell you, but it's kind of, your problem seems to kind of be pocketed.
Looks like the water table would, diffuse that, doesn't it?
You would think water's water, but there's stuff, I don't know.
Dr. Daniel, with your expertise, can you not find lead or manganese in them?
Yeah, you can, they're in there. I just haven't looked at enough samples and enough results to know exactly. And the previous comment's actually right. I mean, these problems are very localized, and maybe the transmissivity rates of these aquifers are low enough that we're not getting the mixing that we think we might be, and that we're hitting these pockets. But it is something that I think it does warrant maybe taking a little closer look at in the future.
What he's getting at is we need some principal forgiveness.
All right, any other questions for Dr. Daniels? Dr. Daniels, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Wish I could have been there this morning.
We missed seeing you for sure. So, all right, next we've got USGS, Drew Westman.
Morning, thanks for having me. Drew Westman with US Geological Survey. I'd like to talk about the different topics of the water that we collect and sample for you. We even will discuss some of that water quality that was being brought up. Start with surface water. We weren't chasing any major floods, but I do like to highlight that chasing droughts are still almost just as time consuming. You're probably familiar with the Drought Monitor and the different maps and the reports that give an idea of how dry soils are and what are current conditions. A lot of that is based off the stream gauge data and the historical flows. And so we were doing a couple of different targeted measurements that NRD helps support. It's the Red River and the Buck Rivers, part of the state compacts, where those get down to kind of scary thresholds for us. We get down there and measure to make sure our values are as accurate as possible. So we were doing, the crews went out and did the special measurements on that. We're also working on a pretty big effort to bring all of our datums, basically the elevation of what that stage value is at river level, into a real world data. Kind of a GPS altitude, sort of, you can think of how to relate that stage in Eudora to a stage there in Fayetteville to a standard altitude. It's a big deal for us, gets into the weeds of the data that we produce, but a lot of effort going in to help to improve the data that we serve to the web. We're also just wrapped up some of our hiring efforts in order to expand that team, so we're better responsive across the state, not only in Arkansas, but across the center of Lower Mississippi Gulf. Moving on to the water quality, specifically kind of referring to that chloride issue that was just being discussed. With partnership of NRD, we have established a well network both in the alluvial, you think of that as the main irrigation aquifer, and in the Sparta. That's mainly serving our public water suppliers, of where we track chloride and salinity concentrations. We call it chloride bromide mixing curves. And so that's a data set that's been that goes back many years that we can start to look at as a group to see what those trends look like. We've been basically collecting that data on a regular yearly schedule, both in the alluvial and Sparta, in order to be able to have that data ready to look at those trends and what the salinity looks like. And some of our reports that we can reference, or I can provide, that it looks like it's rock based. So the geology, the soils, that's really what's contributing to that salinity. It'll probably, to contrast that with what you saw on the news about Baton Rouge and New Orleans and the Arkansas River saltwater, or Mississippi River, the saltwater intrusion, little different process. This is likely a result of just the geology and the soil that's in place, and that keeps the water from mixing as well as what you would think across other areas of the state. So you get these higher concentrations of salinity, chloride, and the other elements that were mentioned. So I think it's a great data set that the NRD has supported through the years. Related to that is another network of groundwater wells across the major aquifers that we call the master wells. And this data set dates back to the early 60s, of where we have 25 wells. We sample 5 of them every year. We alternate through them through the different aquifers in Arkansas. And like a large variety of constituents, you know, iron, manganese, salt, even radiochemistry, to look at how that's changing through time. So that data set's available. Happy to help look at that. We're basically just there to collect the data. We hadn't really investigated it too much, but it's there ready to have some eyes on it to see what those trends look like across the state. More on the surface water quality, our ecologists have been working with the National Park Service and the Buffalo River Committee in order to look at the sources of nutrients for those algal blooms that you hear of during the summer that kind of degrade the at least aesthetics of the Buffalo River. They're wrapping up their final year of data collection, hoping to have that report out next year to have some insight into potentially what's feeding the algal blooms in the summer along the Buffalo River. Moving on to more specifically with groundwater, as already mentioned, which I think it's a wonderful success story, a collaboration of NRCS, NRD, USGS, and Conservation Districts. So where we, the 1st of October, went out as a group and collected over 400 water level samples or water level measurements within the alluvial Mississippi River Plain aquifer. And that, again, the aquifer that's really responsible for providing water for irrigation. We did it within about a 2.5-week window, which is just phenomenal when you're thinking about the crews going out from north to south Arkansas, collecting that many water levels. Critical data to look at the trends of how that water level responds to after irrigation. As a team, we're going to do it again in the spring, and that will help identify how much the water level has recharged or rebounded. So we'll be able to get a pre and post irrigation comparison. Related to that, we were able to get several reports out last quarter that's looking at those changes, how it compares, the alluvial compares to last year and the previous years. And as well as a report on Sparta. I'll be sure to follow up with Blake and team, so you have that readily accessible for maps and the data. But just a wonderful example of success of multiple agencies working together to collect the data. On the water use and water well application programs that we help support NRD, it was mentioned already about the online capability of submitting water construction reports and the water use reporting. Seems like every time I'm talking about some new update. And that's a good thing. We're familiar with how fast the technology changes, both in the mapping components of it and the mobile. And we're trying our best not to have that program be ever look stale and bring it more into the modern. And we're actually expanding that team there to be more responsive to the conservation districts and the development to keep it having a fresh look and be responsive. A couple of highlights that are a little bit outside of what NRD supports, but I thought you may have interest in what USGS has been working with the Park Service and then the Geological Survey, the Arkansas Geological Survey. With the Park Service, we're continuing to work in Hot Springs, the watershed, to identify and delineate that recharge area. We've been doing a lot of geophysical work where basically characterizing the soils, looking at flow paths, to give more feedback to both the RDOT and Park Service on how to best protect that watershed area to maintain that national park into the future. You're probably familiar with there's several exchanges and highways that are being developed, and RDOT wants to be very responsive to ensure that they're protecting that watershed. Recently, you probably heard that Governor Sanders mentioned the announcement of Exxon coming to Arkansas looking at lithium deposits. That's something that we started. There was a project we started with the Geological Survey a couple of years ago, trying to quantify and locate what those reservoirs look like in order to provide that information to the state to support such activities. And hopefully, we've been doing a lot of groundwater sampling and water quality sampling to look at that computer modeling, and that report should come out, I think, early summer 2024. So that is just an exciting highlight that's made the news recently. It's had some USGS involvement. But thanks for having me. Happy to answer any questions if you have them.
So just for fun question.
Okay.
That lithium. So is that setting in groundwater?
I believe so, right? I think it's the deep aquifer reservoirs within southern Arkansas that they're hoping to extract. I'm not as familiar with the whole process of where the extraction aspect, but I do think it's a mixture of similar where they can extract it, but they've got to drill some extraordinarily deep wells in order to pull it out of the area. I'll start lying to you if I say too much more.
I didn't know if they had to pump water in.
Well,
Not like fracking.
Sure, I'm not familiar with that. But that's a good point, is do they have the water to support those type of operations? You know, that was a big question with the Fayetteville Shale plant. It takes a tremendous amount of water.
You have to pump it down and get it out.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that specifics.
Yeah,
But that will be something that you'll want to consider to make sure that the water is there to support those activities.
There's no fracking necessary in that process.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we've got a next Funkhauser with Corps of Engineers.
Thank you all having me this morning. I'm here with my Director of Civil Works, Chief Mike Chirping. We have a couple of studies, few studies with you guys. Obviously, the most attention getting is the Arkansas water plant that Chris was talking about earlier. This is a project that we started with you guys. I think we signed the agreement back in August. And it's a phased approach. It's kind of following Oklahoma's approach where they did phase one, stakeholder meetings, data collection. That's the phase that we're in right now. And we are in the process of selecting contractor. Actually, we identified the contractor actually on Friday. We're waiting for some more information to come back from them. So we have a pretty good idea who it is. The first meeting, it's a face-to-face meeting, will be held with ANRD staff. It'll be sometime in mid-December before Christmas. Then after that, a series of stakeholder meetings take place. They start in July and continue on and through, not July, I'm sorry, January, and continue on and through, we'll be done in July. Sorry, Ryan. It'll start, Ryan's on us, and so is Chris. Get this thing done. We gotta have it done by August. So we will definitely have that done before then. But January and February, the stakeholder meetings will be had. After that, the information that's collected at those stakeholder meetings will be compiled into a report, identifying any gaps between the plan that was developed in 2014 and now. Are there gaps? Are there additional information needs to be collected? If there are, then a phase two approach would theoretically begin sometime next year, August, September timeframe. Just depends on what this first phase is. It's following the same model, like I said, what Oklahoma's done. It's been pretty successful there. The stakeholders are very satisfied with the process, so I think it's a good process to follow. The other study we have with you guys is not quite it's well known, but it is a flood study in Northwest Arkansas, primarily in the Illinois River watershed basin, where we're identifying flood hotspots, looking at change of precip, change of runoff, which occurred over the past 20 or 30 years as the development has occurred in those basins. That study is scheduled to get finished up, wrapped up next November. And our guys are on it. They've actually pulling all the gauge data, looking at changes in stream flow right now. Any gauge data that's out there, and developing some models to kind of theoretically look at streams that might not have stream gauges on. That's where we're at with that study. And the last one I kind of want to mention was, this kind of stems from the levee task force that was formed back in 2019. I believe it's been dissolved since then, but Ryan and some of his staff have been very interested in, I guess, developing an overall assessment of the levees in across the state in Arkansas. And so we've kind of just started that process. We had our headquarters staff here meet with Ryan and some of his staff a few weeks ago. Got actually a call this afternoon with them to keep that process moving, where we can actually work with the state, partner with the state to identify the overall conditions of a lot of the levees in the state, actually find the levees and well, first of all, define what a levee is, and then find those levees, and then begin to assess them to see what it might take to bring those up to a certain standard. That's a long process, and we just started that a few months ago. And to what the young lady said from NRCS, the Corps does have a lot of funds at this time to partner with these types of studies, so it's a good opportunity to capitalize on some of these programs. So it's good to be working with you guys, ANRD, Ryan and his staff. Any questions?
Just so y'all know, that on the state water plan, the Corps is funding half the cost for doing the state water plan. So
that's correct.
Did y'all put up, y'all finish y'all construction on Arkansas River Levee due to floods?
The rehabs?
Yeah.
Yes, I believe we wrapped those up, Mike, right? About a year ago. We just started close all those projects out. It was a pretty major effort. I think, overall, over $150 million worth of damage to the Corps, structures and parks, the dams, the locks and the levees. Yeah. a lot of damage. That was a question.
Any other questions? Thank you, John, appreciate it. All right, with that, is there, any other business that needs to come before the commission?
I'd like to make a statement. I've really enjoyed my time with you. Officially ends December 31st this year. Of course, it continued to serve till the governor appoints a replacement. So this very well may be my last meeting. I may be with you another time or two, but I've really enjoyed, getting to know each of you. I feel like have a network of friends across the state. And, I appreciate you putting up. I'm just a C student. My wife says on a good day. But as a retired banker, it's kind of hard to look at some of these loans with a different hat on. Right, Bill, you can relate to that.
Yes.
So.
Y'all have principal forgiveness.
Yes, but it's not intended.
We don't like to see it.
We never went into it with principal forgiveness. Always on the back end, so anyway. But, I really enjoyed my time with you and I appreciate, your patience and, so look forward to you. If we'll serve, you know my number, it hasn't changed, and so if I can help, I sure appreciate, give me a call, enjoy visiting with you. If I can help in any other way, I still serve on Conservation District and I'm involved and interested in what's happening to our soil. That's really what we all live out of is what we grow in one way or the other. So all these things do have a significant impact. Appreciate your service and the acquaintance that we've had. Thank you.
Roy, it's been a pleasure to serve with you. I mean, I think everybody would echo that. Been nice getting to know you. Hope to see you for at least a few more meetings, if not more than that. But if not, we'll look forward to staying in touch.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Any other business? If not, we'll stand adjourned.
Recording stopped.